Broadcasting from the world headquarters of the National Floor Safety Institute is America's slip and fall guy, Russ Kenzie.
This is America's slip and fall guy, Russ Kenzie. Thanks for listening to my podcast. We're back with attorney Charles Dunkel from the Mill Shirley firm in Galveston, Texas, and welcome back.
Thank you, Russ.
We're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about some of the cases you've worked on, the slip and fall, trip and fall cases, which I'm sure have been a litany from really big, serious damages to kind of the run-of-the-mill, simple, easy, to defend cases. I'm assuming you've worked on all of those.
Absolutely.
Give us kind of an example. Give us a range of, hey, as a defense attorney, what is it you see?
Well, before I get into that, let me just say, when you're dealing with these slip and falls, there's two questions I'm dealing with. The first one is, is it open and obvious? And second is, these damages that they're hitting us with, were they pre-existing? And the reason why I'm bringing that up to you now is because in all these cases, I'm dealing with an injury, regardless if these people were hurt when they fell or not, or if they fell. And the reason why I'm always dealing with one is because I'm always dealing with back injuries. And, I'm about to be 50. I've never had a back injury. Never been in a car accident or anything. Let me knock on some wood. Praise the Lord. But if I was to go get an MRI done to my back right now, you would see issues with my back because we all have what's called degenerative disc disease, all of us. No one can get around it. And, and as we get older, it gets worse, and it manifests itself in different ways as you get older. And with you, it might manifest itself over time where you're having some serious pain, serious issues, you got to get treatment. Where me, I can go my whole life, and even though I have it too, it causes me no issues. But again, I go get an MRI done right now, you're going to see issues with a 50-year-old back spine. You just are. So if I was to walk out your front door here right now, just lay down in the parking lot and scream, for help! I've slipped. Russ, this is a dangerous place. And someone calls the ambulance for me, and they go and they take films on my back. You're gonna find something wrong with my back, and I can blame it on you all day, even though that's a bunch of BS. So in every case, I am dealing with an injury in these slip and falls, and I get them from very minimal to very egregious injuries.
How about other injuries like broken bones, head injuries? You see a lot of that?
See injuries, brain damage injuries. From a lot of concussions. What I call organic brain injuries, things that are going to be an issue for you going, future headaches, memory loss. Now it's going to, doctors saying, hey, he's going to have this memory loss, going into the future, and so seeing a lot of that now. Is it all legit or not? That's a different question.
Yeah, and that's where the role again of experts, and we're going to be talking about that in an upcoming podcast. How experts play a role in assisting the trier of fact, the jury, in understanding whether or not these injuries is a medical expert would have to do, are pre-existing, not pre-existing, and it becomes a battle. I know that because that's what I do.
Right, and I would say 99% in all my slip and fall cases, I'm dealing with a back injury. But also, a smaller percentage of times I'm dealing with hip injuries, ankle injuries, knee injuries. They do come into play.
And meaning somebody slipped, landed on a knee, or somebody slipped, broke a hip.
Right. Or, and they fall and they brace themselves with their arms, and, I'm dealing with a shoulder injury. So, it's just not all lower. And then, as we already indicated, I'm dealing now a lot with these brain injuries.
Right, the head injuries.
Right.
And they come in all sorts, sizes, right? Types and sizes, head injuries.
Absolutely. I mean, you have everything from, cracked skull to there's actually no physical injury to the face area, head injury. We're just dealing with, brain. And then you get into, I guess MRI would be how you would for lack of a better term, if it's incorrect,
Right.
scans of the brain where you might not see anything physical, but they're saying what I'm calling organic. There's other issues there. They're saying are a direct result of the fall.
Sometimes emotional issues that come about after a head injury or traumatic, head impact. And I have to assume, Charles, this really kind of ups the ante, so to speak, in medical costs. I mean, the people that are injured oftentimes will have very extensive medical expenses.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say my average is, I think I mentioned to you this before, at least $100,000 in damage I'm dealing with, and easily goes over that.
Medical,
absolutely. Medical providers charging, and sometimes it's just chiropractic. It's no ortho surgeon or anything. I mean, it's just chiropractic sometimes.
It's funny because I hear that a lot in my work is, a lot of people don't really want to file a lawsuit. They don't want to sue anybody, but they have such high medical expenses. They'll have six figures in medical costs, which kind of force them to recoup that dollar amount by way of filing a lawsuit. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I get two different kind of cases when it comes to that. I have what you're just talking about. They fall, they seek medical attention immediately because they know there's something wrong, and whether it be going back to the brain or something other physical, lower body, upper body, and then over the course of treatment, they seek out an attorney to help them with this issue, the medicals and what have you. And but then I have cases too where they slip, fall, allegedly they're hurt, but the very first thing they do is they seek out an attorney, and then the attorney tells them what doctor to go see. And then that's when you really get into how legit it is. And and I say that with this, keep this in mind. The majority of the attorneys I deal with, I have the utmost respect for. I do believe when these people walk into their front door, they do their due diligence. They make sure they're not filing something frivolous. But I do have a small percentage where what I'm talking about happens, and those are the ones right off the bat. They might be injured. But man, it raises an eyebrow, and I think it raises a jury's eyebrow. If you're really hurt, why are you thinking about lawsuit and money? Why are you not seeking medical attention?
Yeah, the bad cases, the bad suits really harm the legitimate ones. I mean, there's legitimate victims of people who are really harmed, and they get thrown into the batch of the not so good ones.
You are so right about that.
And I've worked on quite a few cases. One that comes to mind in California where there was a ring of fraud, where people were being brought up south of the border, and there was a medical doctor doing unnecessary back surgery on these people after they allegedly fell usually it was a major restaurant chain's parking lot. And so they would stage, if you will, an event, and it was a attorney, law firm, medical doctor, and actually an expert witness who were kind of in this ring. And it was all about doing unnecessary surgeries, raising the medical cost to a very, very high level. And the person's story never really made sense. And actually they were exploiting these women from Central America, South and Central America, and they got caught. And I was involved in that case where it kind of came about, and surprisingly, the medical doctor waived his $250,000 in medical fees and dropped the case. So you see all types, but the sad thing is they all get thrown into the mix. So the general public, folks listening to this podcast, they don't know the difference. And so kind of give us an example of, hey, here's a case that was legit, kind of a typical defense, and here's, kind of give us a range of what you see.
Yeah, and unfortunately, saying all that, it's unfortunate. There's a lot of people who they try to make a living or supplement their living through lawsuits and to these slip and falls. And a good example of that is I had a case, and if memory serves me right, you might have been involved in this one. When I start talking about it, you tell me if you were my expert or not, because I don't hire an expert in every single case, as you know.
Right.
But I had a case, and this is probably going back to 2005, 2006 at the time. Case had just had a bizarre life. But it was in a restaurant. A little girl, I don't remember how old she was, somewhere around 7, 8.
Is this the carpet case?
This is the carpet case.
Yeah, I did work on that one.
And she was wearing tennis shoes, and she allegedly slipped on carpet. And big scene made and all that. Mom makes a big scene. And they get an ambulance there. They take this girl off. Now, this is a case where one of the very few, there's no injury. I mean, she goes to the ER. There's just nothing. They don't mark her down for a bruise or anything. And Mom did not. Mom goes to the front with the ambulance and the EMTs and and with the little girl. They put her in the ambulance. Mom doesn't go with her. Mom goes back in the store.
It's a restaurant.
It's right. It's a restaurant. She goes back inside, and she takes these pictures, and which I get them later, and literally, talking to the other employees, they said that she had poured this liquid in the floor and put napkins on. No, she had put napkins down, poured water on the napkins, and took a picture of it. And and if you remember, it was a very small, like 12 by 12, 12 inches by 12 inches. And then during Mom's deposition, we're talking about that case, and I don't remember how this came up, but lo and behold, Mom has another lawsuit against another company for her own slip and fall. And I remember after the deposition, I found out who was representing that other company. I called that attorney, told him, hey, I just took her deposition. This is what came out. This is what she said about your lawsuit. And they were like, oh, we're going to settle it. Don't worry, no, thanks for letting us know, which was bizarre, because I'm thinking, man, they're setting up this little girl to be a victim, which she's not. Mom is doing this to supplement other income. They are exactly what you were talking about. It's not the legit lawsuits and they are getting thrown in the mix with the legit lawsuits. And people like us who deal with this all the time, it's easy for us to get jaded and think everything that comes across our desk, oh, this is BS, which we have to be careful we don't do that, because I do have cases that are legit. And the other extreme of the one I just told you is I did have a case where my client was going to sell their property, and they kept deferring maintenance. There was a bad leak. And they would put a Band-Aid on the problem. And then the leak would happen some more. And tenants, and this is a shopping complex, tenants and patrons would complain, hey, it's really slippery there, And they would go out there and they would just, if I remember right, they would do things like pour bleach on the area and not fix it. And it turned out to be because they were trying to sell the property. They were trying to defer those costs off to who was going, the future owner. And this gentleman comes through, walking through there, and today it's flooded. And, part of the argument of the case was he shouldn't have walked through. There was some water on the ground. Why didn't he go around it? But setting that aside, he steps in that. He walks through there, and as soon as he gets to the water part, and he hits what looks like drier ground, man, he goes down, and he's hurt, and he's hurt legitimately. I mean, he did have a brain injury. He had a hip injury. He hurt his knee, and I'm stretching my memory a little bit. I mean, we're going back, somewhere around 2005 on this case too, but it was all legit, and. He was taken care of. That there was no trial on that or anything like that. I mean, we got the case, investigated, found out, right. There was an issue here. There was an issue here before the man slipped. Why didn't you step up to the plate, owner? And start. And man, I couldn't even imagine trying that case going in front of a jury, and they're hearing about, they're trying to defer costs, and while everyone's safety is being thrown out the window. I mean, are you serious?
Jeopardize the public safety.
Absolutely. So, we had a good sit down with the carrier and myself and the client, and probably had like 2 coming to Jesus meetings in that case. And but we took care of him. And he was an older gentleman. He was probably 65 at that time. Had no real injuries in his past. Was a veteran. I mean, and we got all those records, and it was a case where there was no real discovery issues with regards to getting that information. It was readily made available because it was legit. It was a legit injury, and he has, unfortunately, he's going to be living with problems the rest of his life.
Yeah,
just because of that.
And you bring up a good point. When you get to listen to the plaintiff, you can tell usually pretty quickly, is this legit? Is this real? Does their story make sense? As an expert witness, I read as you take every deposition, I have to read them as an expert, and you quickly kind of put pieces of the puzzle together, because that's part of my job and your job is, put the story together. Does it make sense? Is it plausible? Is there any corroboration? What is the story? And sometimes, plaintiff stories just don't stick. They don't hold.
Right, they don't.
And the minute you kind of sense that, you think, well, what's going on? Other times it's the complete opposite. They're very clear. It's very vivid. They recall information very succinctly, and even long after their deposition, they still recall the same story, which brings, kind of a genuineness to their case. But you brought up another point, an excellent point. Investigation. As an attorney, as a defense attorney, you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your homework. You talk to other attorneys. That's another important thing to understand is, plaintiffs do the same thing. Plaintiff attorneys, they learn as much about the cases defense attorneys do. So if a particular plaintiff has filed previous lawsuits, that's going to be found out. I mean, it's
absolutely,
especially if it's a large sum of money they're asking for. There's an investigation that's going to go into the litigation. Either way. And so for people that are, filing a lawsuit, they need to understand that this isn't just a, payday, file a lawsuit and you get a big check. It's funny, I saw a number of cases that were seemingly filed around the holidays, specifically Christmas. People tend to fall a lot, during the Christmas time, thinking, hey, between now and Christmas, I'm going to get a settlement check to pay for Christmas gifts. And of course, that's never how it goes. And there is a certain cycle to people getting injured in the winter, so Christmas time in certain parts of the country. But, if you kind of took a snapshot of, the typical slip and fall case, kind of give us an example. Who are these people? Because you gave kind of a range, but because you and I have worked on a number of cases, and they always seem to be just different.
They're different.
There's no two that are ever the same. In fact, there was one case that comes to mind where the gentleman that fell in the parking lot. Remember that? The fall in the parking lot?
I do.
What was that about?
Yeah. If memory serves me right, you're going back a little bit on me on that one too. He was cutting through a drive-through at a restaurant. The drive-through window. He was cutting through, and it was in the evening time. And I don't recall, Russ, what he says he slipped on.
Well, I do. It was an interesting case because the drive-through was elevated, and right next to it, at the ground level was a sidewalk, but he chose not to use the sidewalk. He rather cut through.
Yes, and there was brush that separated the sidewalk from the elevated drive-through.
And then there was a short edge, kind of a curb, and he said he fell on the curb. He fell near the curb, and
that is right, Russ. That is right. And he slipped down to the side of the brush.
Right.
Yes, I remember.
And of course, we went out and did a site inspection, took photographs. Just is this plausible? Is this realistic? Is there anything that was an obvious defect? And he alleged certain things, and I don't remember all the details, but he was with a couple of guests, and apparently was drinking prior to this, and you find all this out.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't that he was drinking. He slips and falls, goes in the restaurant. If it happened there, he had a really serious injury. I mean, it was really, muscles torn off the bone type of injury. Painful.
Right.
But he goes inside and he eats. He has his dinner, and at the end of the dinner, he complained to the waiter, "Hey, man, your drive-thru's not safe. I slipped and fall." Whatever he said, and they documented it. But then he goes to the ER after that, and he had party favors in his system other than alcohol.
Party favors.
Yeah, he did that, and but he had a controlled substance in his system. I don't remember what it was, but the funny thing about that case was his provider, the doctor, got convicted for writing fake scripts, and it was for that same drug that he was in his system at that time. And I remember bringing it up I brought it up during his deposition. Of course, he denied. It wasn't in my system. No, not me. You're wrong. I was like, no, I'm sure. Yeah, I know that all the doctors and the lab techs, they're wrong. Yeah, you're right. And then we brought it up at the mediation. And, his attorney, I would bring it up, and they kind of shrugged it off. But I think that we settled that case for a little bit of nothing, and that contributed to it. He didn't have an expert anymore.
Yeah.
His expert was doing time.
And we're gonna be talking about that in an upcoming podcast. The role of the expert, how experts are brought into cases, when do you need them, what kind of expert, whether it's a medical or in my area of safety, walkway safety. But the defendant in that case, and I guess this is a general question, you take what you get as a defense attorney. Sometimes you have better clients, defendants than others. Some defendants will not necessarily tell you the truth. I mean, you only have as much information as they're willing to provide you. I've worked on a number of cases where documents were requested by a plaintiff attorney that I was retained by, and the defense attorney would say, we don't have those. And my client says he doesn't have those, rules, policies, procedures, whatever the documents were, only to find out they did.
Right.
And, the attorney for the defendant didn't know. And when it kind of comes out, your client's withholding information, and if you would have provided it, you would have seen, in fact, what's being alleged by the plaintiff was a violation of the standard of care.
Right.
But you kind of take what you get with defendants, right? Some of your clients will, and in the case of the parking lot, they were, or the better one, the carpet, the girl who fell. I mean, that restaurant owner was hell bent on he wasn't gonna budge.
Yeah, he did not. He begged the carrier, do not settle with them. Do not. He was very staunch on that issue, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I get them from one extreme to the other. I get them who they're very involved with the litigation. They want to be very involved. I mean, they're calling me routinely. Hey, what's going on? What do you need from me? They want to participate as much as possible because they especially if they feel they did nothing wrong, and they do not want the carrier because even though if we settle it, no one's taking any liability on the issue. We're just settling it. They feel that, hey, you settle it, it makes me look bad, and that we did something wrong. So I have those clients that are very engaged in litigation. And I got the clients, they could care less. And they'll tell you, I got insurance for that. And you've said that before. I got insurance for that. That's why I get insurance. Just make the case go away. Get done.
Right.
It's a thorn in their side. And then you get the ones that are in between.
It's funny, the ones that have that attitude of that's why I have insurance also seem to be the ones that have larger problems.
Usually, it's a legit fall because they had a hazardous situation going on that they didn't give a rat's butt about.
Right.
Yeah, well, you're right.
I sadly see that as much as you do, maybe more. in my role, in my job. And your firm, just you cover a big area, right? Mill Shirley is kind of all over South Texas for the most part.
Yeah, we're the oldest firm in the state of Texas. There's another firm in Houston that tries to take that claim, but the state of Texas has recognized us as the oldest firm in Texas. We started in 1846, and we're still going today. Actually got its start representing the railroad, Santa Fe Railroad. That's really where it all got started. And but we're still here in 2019. We got an office in Galveston, which is our main office, and we got an office in Houston.
How many lawyers in the firm?
We are, on the average, I want to say we maintain about 20.
20 attorneys?
Yeah, it goes up and down, but about 20.
And you work on cases beyond, obviously.
Yes, I mean, we're a defense firm, first and foremost. Not to say we've never done any plaintiff's work, because we have, but for the most part, we're a defense firm from anywhere from Title VII cases to slip and fall defenses and everything that falls in between, breach of contract, family law issues. I should say things, estate issues, not so much family law. We were family law for a while. We don't have anyone doing that now, but family, anything you can think of, we've defended it, we've handled it. We can take care of you. Believe me.
So, what motivated you to become an attorney, Charles? I mean, what? how did this happen?
This happened when I've wanted to be an attorney since I was 6 years old.
You even knew what an attorney was at 6?
I did, and I still remember in first grade, the teacher made all of us stand up and say, what you want to be when you grow up? And, that was the first time I said it. I want to be a lawyer. And, that always came followed with laughter. I don't know. I don't know why. And I stuck with it. I graduated from high school and immediately joined the service because I did not have the money for school. So I joined the service, let Uncle Sam take care of it, and which he took care of most of it, except for law school was on me. By the time I got started law school, I wanted to be a prosecutor, and then that was I never wanted to be anything else but a prosecutor. So when I got out, I prosecuted cases, loved it. Absolutely loved it. I have learned over time that the two cases that you'll never have a jury fall asleep on you is anything dealing with sex, anything dealing with crime. You got their attention from start to finish. You can't get, if you want to be a trial attorney, I can't imagine a better place to start because you are constantly in trial. I've had so many trials. I have literally lost count. I do not know how many as a first chair. I don't recall. I can take a pretty good guess, but sitting second chair and first, I honestly don't have a number anymore. I lost count over the years. And that's why one of the reasons why I left is I got kind of burnt out of constantly being in the courtroom. I just needed a break.
Yeah.
And doing civil litigation, it's more, you're at your desk, more in the conference room. Back when I started, documents spread out all over the place. Now, everything's on the computer. We're pretty much paperless. But I loved it. Being an attorney is exactly what I anticipated it was going to be. There's been some curveballs here and there, but it's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Well, it's a stressful job. A lot of people don't realize that, especially for plaintiff attorneys. They put a lot of money out, they invest a lot in the case, and they may get a whole lot of nothing in the end. High rate of suicides, high rate of drug abuse, and sadly in your profession, you probably know attorneys that have,
unfortunately, yes.
And so it's not necessarily the glamorous lifestyle it's made out to be on, Law and Order.
No, it's not glamorous. It definitely isn't that. But it definitely was my calling. I love it. I honestly love it. I look forward to getting up every day, going to work. I have my wife is one that reminds me when I need to take a vacation because I go some lengths of time without taking time off. But man, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So it's not, like they say, it's not work if you enjoy it, right?
Right. And interestingly, my wife is the same. She knows it's time for you to take some time away for yourself. I mean, because you just get wrapped up in your work. And of course, I'm not only running the NFSI, but working as a consultant on slip, trip, and fall matters for my consulting company, Traction Experts, writing books, doing the podcast. I got a lot going on, and it can oftentimes kind of eclipse, some downtime, some personal time.
Right, absolutely.
How do folks get a hold of you, Charles? How would somebody want to get a hold of you?
You can go to millshirley.com.
Okay.
You can get a hold of me, and if I'm not the type of attorney you're looking for, because I do slip and fall, I do personal injury defense, I do some Title VII, which is employers being sued for some type of discrimination, including sexual harassment claims. And so if you have those issues, I also do a lot of, if you don't think your company's set up right with regards to if you're dealing with, you don't know if you're dealing with a contractor, if you're dealing with an attorney. I can come in and help see how you're set up, tell you if you're dealing with contractor's attorney, what are your consequences if you have this wrong, what you need to do going forward to make sure you're correct in the eyes of Texas, and you don't find yourself paying a bunch of money back in employee taxes. I do Title VII investigations, but that's when I first got out, left the DA's office, I was just doing Title VII work, defending companies.
What is Title VII?
The discrimination based on race, religion, sex, sexual harassment, disability, discrimination. When companies are getting sued for that, usually it was employees or ex-employees suing their employer, and I would defend them, and I still do. I defend them in those cases. I helped out another attorney at the firm with regards to a personal injury case, and that's how I made this transition into personal injury. And to be honest with you, the first case I had, I hated it. Going through those medical records, I was like, there was a reason why I didn't go to law school, and so didn't want nothing to do with it. And then when he left, well, there was a void in these cases. Someone needed to fill this void. So I got to know some of the carriers from helping him out, and they just said, "Hey, will you handle these going forward?" And I reluctantly said yes. And now I absolutely love them. Wow. I prefer to do the personal injury over the Title VII. But I mean, I like all of it. So if I'm not the type of attorney that you're looking for, I mean, we have it at Mills Shirley. I mean, but the only thing that we don't do is divorce. We don't represent an individual going through divorce. We don't do a lot of family law. We used to, but not so much anymore. But I mean, estate planning, anything done with contracts, any transactional work that you need done, any type of litigation. I mean, we have an attorney that not only does it, who has done it, right, and has a significant.
Well, that's always what I recommend when I get calls, from an injured person, is to make sure you hire the right attorney. Everybody, likes to think that their attorney's the best, right, and everybody else is the worst. Well, that's kind of subjective. Hiring the right attorney that has the right level of experience, knowledge in the type of matter you're involved in, and sadly, as long as there's, as I say, as long as there's gravity, people will fall, and some of those result in serious injuries that result in a lawsuit, and so there's no shortage for attorneys and lawsuits, are there?
No, there's no shortage of attorneys. That's for sure. There's probably not enough work with the amount of attorneys we have out there.
Well, again, appreciate you coming in today. We've been speaking with attorney Charles Dunkel from the Mills Shirley firm out of Galveston, Texas. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
And this is America's Slip and Fall Guy, Russ Kenzior, reminding you to make sure your next step isn't your last step. Until then, take care.